All right, this story is called If This Is Love, You Gotta Give Me Maureen.
Oh, brutal.
The first woman that I wanted to talk about was named Patricia Davies, known as Pat. It was, an early girlfriend that Ringo had. She was best friends with someone named Priscilla White. Do you know that name?
I don't.
This sounds really familiar, but everything you've ever told me on this podcast, I found a way to forget.
And out, yeah. That's Cilla Black.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah, perfect.
Yes, so she was best friends with Cilla Black and shared Cilla Black's ambitions of becoming a hairdresser, as many did in Liverpool, it sounds like. I think that just was a cultural thing. Anyway, Patricia Davies has a quote here. That meant finding someone to practice on, but neither of our mums would let us near their hair. The only woman that we'd ever met who didn't mind us doing practical work on her was Ringo's mother, Elsie Starkey. On Wednesday nights, we went round to our house, and she was the soul of patience. She let us bleach her hair and do terrible things to it, but she never once complained. She also gave us our tea, either boiled ham or spam and homemade chips. Mrs. Starkey was a fantastic lady. Patricia Davies.
That's so cool.
Ringo and Pat broke up in 1957 when he was 17. So this is like, early relationship. They remained friendly afterwards, and even during the, quote, Pete Best riots, where people were screaming Pete forever, Ringo never, when he joined. Pat and Cilla were screaming Peter never, Ringo forever.
I love it.
The next woman I want to highlight is named Geraldine McGovern. So afterwards, in 1957, he started seeing Geraldine, or as she was known, Gerry. And this was a very serious relationship. Things got serious in 1960. They became engaged, actually.
Wow.
Before he joined the Beatles. Ringo's grandfather presented him with a gold wedding ring. Although they didn't end up getting married, Ringo wore that ring on his hand. It might be odd seeing a pre-1965 Ringo wearing a wedding ring, but it was his grandfather's that he was wearing. They got very close. By March 1961, the reception hall was reserved. Wedding cars had been booked. They were going to go through with this thing. And as usual for Ringo, drums and music seemed to get in the way. Gerry had always hoped that he would eventually quit and get a stable job as a hairdresser, or something of that ilk. And right at that moment, Rory had just booked the season at Butlin's holiday camp, which was like one of their major residencies they played early on. It's basically like a seaside resort. Upon discussing whether Ringo would take the next step, either with the music or with the marriage, settle down or go on tour and do all what you're doing, Ringo was like, I got to do the music. And so it became the end of the relationship. That was a very poignant moment in my life. I left her one night and I got on the bus and thought, well, what happens if I don't go back? And I never went back. I just wanted to play. It was more important to me. Ringo.
Wow, that's really amazing. I'd never heard that story.
The ring was given back to him, and Ringo eventually gave it to his mother. And finally, we have Maureen Cox. So she was born Mary, but changed her name to Maureen, but she was called Mo, so.
Oh, I get it. Give me Mo. I get it.
Oh, thank you. This is a little bit of a McGill, Lil, Nancy type situation, but Mary was Maureen, was Mo. Okay, so that works. But even further than that, we have the close friends calling her Mitch. So Ringo had multiple names, and this suited Ringo. So we have Mary, Maureen, Mo, Mitch, and Richard, Dick, Rich, Ringo, whatever.
Didn't they also call him Rings?
Rings, yeah, exactly. They were also both only children. So, it was kind of like, oh, this like works, this fits. We're like two peas in a pod. We have so much in common. But yeah, so she would call him Ringo initially because I'll explain here, knew him as a fan first. But he finally, requested that she say Richie. And they eventually became known as a couple as Richie and Mitch in the inner circle. That's just what they would be referred to as. Maureen was a Cavernite, as they say, and was a fan of the Beatles already. She'd just go to the Cavern all the time, loved all the bands, whatever, obviously loved the Beatles. In fact, she had already hung out, in quotes, with Paul on a few occasions.
Ooh.
This is another case where Paul has dated someone that went on to date one of his bandmates, so go figure. One day when Ringo was leaving the Cavern, he got into his car and Maureen was with her friend Jackie. They were walking through the alley there and they saw him come out of the Cavern and they were starstruck. She said that that was uncommon for her. Like, didn't really get starstruck, but it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, there's Ringo.
Again, starstruck, Ringo.
Ringo starstruck.
I don't know why this has happened for the first time in today's episode, but yeah, twice. All right, continue.
But anyway, she went up, she knocked on the window and asked for an autograph. And then as he like pulled off, he's like, "Are you coming to the show tonight?" So it seems like out of a movie. I'm sure it was a little bit more awkward, but yeah, it's kind of cool that there was that first interaction. So, you know, they dated in the sense that I feel like the Beatles dated a lot of the fans at that time. Very casual, very kind of like groupie type thing, you might even say. But Mitch persisted. She was like, I think that this is something that could work. And so they actually became an official pair dating in 1962. So yeah, this would have been pre-Beatles. Other fans were jealous of her and she was actually threatened and she got scratched on an occasion, etc. So it was kind of like a crazy ordeal. Like the Beatlemania was not something that just happened later. It was already happening in Liverpool and stuff. The 1963 vacation that Ringo and Paul took to Greece, we spoke about it very briefly, while John had a honeymoon in Paris. They were accompanied by Maureen and Jane on that. And she also went on the Virgin Islands vacation in 1964. But I think in both cases, but certainly for the Virgin Islands vacation, right after they shot the film, she didn't tell her parents where she was going because she didn't think that she'd get permission to do that. So she just kind of snuck out and went to the Virgin Islands. That's quite the sneak out.
Yes.
But she couldn't hide it from her parents for very long. They read about it in the newspaper, actually. And then, of course, when Ringo collapsed from his tonsils, she visited him in the hospital every day, which is another thing that we talked about recently. Now, there's more to this story. I don't want to get too far into it because there's some events that happen soon, so we're going to cover those later. But I just wanted to highlight those three women and then obviously setting up Maureen for her inclusion in the story because she becomes a major part.